Imagine a school where maybe you don't do so well in something, and instead of getting an F that mark that just screams finality, judgment, you get told, not yet. It
Mm.
sounds almost, I don't know, idealistic, but it's actually a real concept, a revolutionary idea from Stanford psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck. And that simple phrase, not yet, well, it might just hold the key to unlocking some incredible potential in all of
It's
us.
deceptively simple, but yeah, incredibly powerful.
So today, that's exactly what we're taking a deep dive into, this fascinating and honestly pretty transformative world of the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And this isn't just, about thinking positively or some passing fad. It feels like a really foundational shift in how we see our own abilities, our intelligence, and maybe most importantly, how we tackle challenges, setbacks, even our successes.
Absolutely. It underpins so much of our behavior and our outcomes.
For this deep dive, we've got some really illuminating sources. We're looking directly at Dr. Carol Dweck's own groundbreaking research spanning decades. We're also pulling insights from studies at places like Stanford, looking at how companies like Google and Microsoft are trying to build cultures around this.
Right, the real world applications.
Exactly. And we'll also get into some practical guides, things like journaling and fostering these mindsets in classrooms, workplaces, even at home.
So bridging the theory and the practice.
That's the goal. Our mission today is really to unpack what these mindsets truly mean for your day-to-day life, explore their impact, which seems pretty far-reaching, and crucially, equip you with some concrete, actionable strategies, things you can actually use to cultivate a stronger growth mindset no matter where you're starting from.
Yeah, because it really is a journey, not a destination, something you continually cultivate.
So let's get into it.
Let's do it. It's such a vital topic. Understanding this can genuinely change how you approach, well, almost everything. Learning new things, dealing with difficulties, even relationships. It reframes potential
Yeah.
itself.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We hear these terms thrown around a lot now. Fixed mindset, growth mindset.
Mhm.
But what exactly is a mindset in this context? And what's the real difference between fixed and growth? It sounds simple, but I have a feeling it goes deeper than just, trying to be optimistic.
Yo, it absolutely does. It goes right to the core of our beliefs about ourselves. So a mindset, fundamentally, it's your underlying belief system about your own abilities and qualities. Think of it like the lens you use to view the world and, really importantly, your place in it.
Okay.
Now, Dr. Dweck's work defines a fixed mindset as the belief that your intelligence, your personality, maybe your talents, even your basic character, these things are static. They're inherent traits. You've got a certain amount, and that's pretty much it.
Like you're dealt a hand, and that's the hand you play.
Exactly. And when you operate from that fixed mindset, every situation, every task, every interaction, it kind of becomes a test. You're constantly asking yourself, maybe not even consciously, will I succeed or fail here? Am I going to look smart or dumb? Will people accept me or reject me? Am I a winner or a loser?
Constant proving.
Yes, it's all about proving yourself, validating that inherent worth you believe you have. And the fear of failure, or even just looking like you're failing, that becomes this huge barrier. It stops you from trying new things, taking risks.
Because failure would mean you're inherently flawed in that view.
Precisely. It feels like a direct reflection on your fixed abilities. Now, in stark contrast, a growth mindset is the belief that these very same abilities, intelligence, skills, talents, even parts of your personality, they can be developed. They can be enhanced.
Okay, so not set in stone.
Not at all. It's not about pretending you don't have limitations now, but it's believing that through, dedication, consistent hard work, and this is key, using good strategies, you can significantly improve. It's this powerful idea that your intelligence and skills are, well, they're like a muscle.
The muscle analogy. I've heard that.
Yeah, and it's a good one. Just like a muscle, they can grow stronger, they can expand, but only if you put in the effort and take on challenges. It's a belief in continuous development. Effort isn't seen as a sign that you lack ability. It's actually the path to ability, to mastery.
So the belief itself changes how you react.
Fundamentally, it dictates your whole emotional and behavioral response to challenge, often without you even realizing it's happening.
Right, and this is where it gets really interesting, for me anyway. Dweck's big turning point, where this idea really clicked for her, was observing a high school in Chicago. And in this school, students didn't get an F or a no credit if they didn't pass. Instead, if they hadn't mastered the material yet, they got a grade that just said, not yet. That's such a small change, just 2 words, but wow, that feels incredibly powerful, doesn't it?
It's truly transformative, because think about what that simple phrase, not yet, does. It completely reframed how you perceive failure.
How so?
Well, if you get that traditional F, like you said, the immediate thought can often be, okay, I failed. I'm no good at this. I'm nothing. I'm nowhere. It feels like a dead end, right? A definitive judgment on you and your ability.
Yeah, a final verdict.
Exactly. But if you get not yet,
Yeah.
what does that imply? It immediately puts you on a learning curve. It says, okay, you haven't mastered this yet, but you will have the chance to improve. It signals an ongoing process. It offers a clear path forward into the future. And, crucially, it shifts the entire focus from a fixed outcome to the process of learning.
So it's about the journey, not just the end point.
Precisely. It's about understanding that where you are right now, your current performance, it doesn't define your ultimate potential. It just shows where you are on that learning journey. It gives hope, but more than hope, it actually suggests a concrete path forward. It turns judgment into information.
And you mentioned this isn't just some nice philosophical idea or a clever grading trick. There's actual science, neuroscience, backing this up. What's really happening in our brains when we hit an error, depending on whether we have a fixed or a growth mindset? Is it like different parts light up?
It's quite fundamental, yeah. Studies using things like EEG to measure electrical activity in the brain show a really stark and fascinating difference. When students who lean towards a fixed mindset encounter an error, make a mistake, their brains show surprisingly little activity related to actually processing that error.
Really? They just ignore it.
It's almost like they neurally run from it. They disengage. They don't delve into understanding what went wrong. The brain activity in the areas we associate with detecting errors and correcting them, it's minimal. It's like the brain is trying to avoid the discomfort, maybe the perceived embarrassment, of having made a mistake. It's almost a neural shutdown in that specific area.
Wow. Okay, so what about the growth mindset, folks?
That's where it gets exciting. For those with a growth mindset, the students who believe abilities can be developed, their brains are, as Dweck colorfully puts it, on fire with yet.
On fire with yet. I like that.
Yeah. When they make an error, their brains don't just passively note it. They actively seek out that error signal. They see it as critical information for learning and growth. Their brains engage deeply with the mistake. You see robust activity in those same brain regions that process errors, learn from them, and then work to correct them.
So the mistake becomes a trigger for learning, not shutting down.
Exactly. And this isn't just a metaphor. The really profound insight here is that the feeling of discomfort, of struggling with something difficult, that's not a sign you're failing. That's literally the feeling of your brain upgrading itself.
Whoa.
Yeah. When you push yourself out of your comfort zone, when you grapple with new and difficult things, the neurons in your brain are actually forming new, stronger connections. This process, this active engagement with challenge and error, it literally makes you smarter over time. Neuroscientists at places like Stanford have actually found more efficient brain activity during math thinking in students who have a positive mindset about math, even when they control for things like IQ and age.
So the mindset itself primes the brain to learn better.
Precisely. It makes errors an essential part of the progress, not a signal that you've hit a wall or a dead end. It makes the brain more receptive to learning from mistakes.
That's incredible. The idea that feeling uncomfortable isn't just something to endure, but it's actually a sign of biological brain growth happening. Okay, so connecting this back to students, especially maybe those who are struggling, we often fixate on grades, but this sounds like it goes way deeper than just bumping up a letter on a report card, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It digs into something far more fundamental than just grades. The impact on what researchers call academic tenacity is profound.
Academic tenacity, what's that exactly?
It's basically the mindset and skills that allow students to look long-term, set goals, and work towards them even when things get tough. It's about resilience in an academic setting. And research consistently shows that actively teaching students a growth mindset can lead to a really sharp rebound in grades, especially for students who are already struggling.
Do you have an example of that?
Yeah, there's a compelling study from New York City that worked with minority public school students who were making that tough transition into 7th grade, a time when math grades often start to decline for many kids.
Right, that can be a challenging jump.
Definitely. So these students participated in a 6-session workshop. A key part of it was teaching them about the growth mindset, explicitly explaining how their brain grows new connections and literally gets smarter when they tackle challenging tasks.
Yeah.
They even had them visualize their neurons making connections.
Wow, making it really concrete.
Exactly. And The results were remarkable. Compared to a control group, these students showed a significant, measurable improvement in their math performance. It wasn't just about trying harder, it was about understanding why trying harder on difficult things actually worked biologically.
So it cultivates that tenacity you mentioned.
Precisely. Academic tenacity isn't just about being naturally gifted. It's the ability to actively seek out challenges, to stay engaged with your studies over the long haul, and crucially, not get derailed by intellectual setbacks or social difficulties. It completely reframes how you see a setback.
So instead of, I failed the test, I'm dumb,
It becomes, okay, I didn't do well on this test. What strategies didn't work? What do I need to learn differently? This is an opportunity to figure something out. It transforms a moment of potential humiliation or confirmation of inability into a puzzle to be solved, a challenge to overcome. It's about responding with resilience and strategy, not despair.
That makes so much sense.
And we see these incredible real-world ripple effects. Professor Dweck tells a story about a poignant letter she received from a 13-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
He wrote that after learning about her growth mindset research, he consciously decided to put more effort into his schoolwork, but also into his relationship with his family, and even how he interacted with other kids at school.
So applying it broadly.
Exactly. And what's striking is he reported experiencing great improvement in all of those areas.
Oh.
And then he added this powerful reflection. He said he regretted having wasted most of his life before understanding this concept.
Wow, at 13. That's heavy.
It really is. It shows that this isn't just about grades. It's about feeling agency over your own development, seeing how effort and strategy can genuinely transform your whole experience of life, touching everything.
That's truly inspiring, seeing that kind of empowerment. And you're right, it clearly isn't just for students. How does this growth mindset play out for us as adults in our overall lives, our mental well-being, outside of formal education?
Well, it applies profoundly to life in general. It fosters a more purposeful, definitely more resilient, and I think ultimately more meaningful existence for anyone who embraces it. It encourages us to be more open to everyday challenges, instead of trying to avoid them or feeling completely flattened by them.
So more adaptable.
Yeah, adaptable and accepting. It teaches us to accept what life brings rather than having this rigid idea of what has to happen and then getting stuck or bitter when things inevitably don't go according to that fixed plan. It shifts our orientation from demanding life fit our expectations to growing through whatever life throws at us.
And it helps reframe things.
Absolutely. It empowers us to reframe concepts we usually see as negative, like maybe perfection, as an unattainable ideal, or an obstacle as just a roadblock. We can see them instead as an opportunity for improvement, or maybe just average as a perfectly fine starting point from which to grow. It's about finding the potential for learning in almost any situation.
And the connection to mental well-being seems huge here.
It's huge. Strong mental health is intricately linked to literally every aspect of our lives, our physical health, how we perform at work, the quality of our relationships, our overall life satisfaction. Good mental health acts like a protective buffer, right? It builds resilience when we face adversity. It sharpens our thinking when we need it.
Makes sense.
It helps us have more optimal emotional responses in tough situations so we don't get stuck spiraling in rumination or despair. And studies back this up. Research has shown that people with higher levels of psychological well-being tend to have better cardiovascular health, stronger immune function, even increased longevity. And a growth mindset directly fuels this. It builds that resilience during tough times and enables more constructive ways of processing our emotions. It helps us bounce back more effectively from stress and setbacks. It fundamentally changes how we internalize and react to the world.
And you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier, that feeling of being a fraud despite success.
Right.
How does growth mindset help there? That seems like a really common struggle.
It's incredibly common, and a growth mindset can be such a powerful antidote. Because what is imposter syndrome, really? It's that nagging self-doubt, that feeling of inadequacy, even when external evidence says otherwise.
Right. I don't deserve this. I just got lucky.
Exactly. A growth mindset helps you reframe that self-doubt. Instead of seeing it as definitive proof that you're inadequate or a fraud, you learn to see it as a natural part of the learning curve. It's a signal that you're pushing your boundaries, stepping outside your comfort zone. It becomes an opportunity for development, for genuine growth, not a sign you don't belong.
So the feeling itself isn't proof of anything negative.
Right. It helps you see that feeling below par or uncertain is actually a shared human experience when learning something new. It's an invitation to learn more, a signal you're stretching yourself. It liberates you from that constant, exhausting pressure to prove yourself and allows you to just focus on improving.
That feels incredibly freeing, actually. Okay, so we've seen the power for individuals, but what about groups? Can a whole team or even a big organization adopt a growth mindset? I know Google is famous for its deep dives into data. They did some research on team effectiveness, right? Does that connect here?
It connects directly and fascinatingly. Yes, Google's Project Aristotle, this was a huge internal research effort they undertook to figure out what actually makes a team effective. They crunched tons of data, looked at all sorts of factors.
And what did they find? Was it about having superstars on the team?
Surprisingly, no. Individual brilliance wasn't the key predictor. The most paramount factor, the one that stood out above all others, was something they called psychological safety.
Psychological safety. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It's not just about being nice, though that helps. It's rigorously defined as a shared belief within the team that it is safe to take interpersonal risks. That means team members feel genuinely confident they won't be embarrassed, rejected, maybe even punished for things like speaking up with a new idea, even if it's half-baked.
Oh, we're admitting a mistake.
Exactly. Admitting errors, asking for help when you're stuck, respectfully challenging existing ways of doing things. It's the polar opposite of groupthink, where everyone's afraid to rock the boat or voice dissent, which can lead to terrible decisions or missed opportunities.
So psychological safety allows for vulnerability and learning.
Precisely, and that links directly to a growth mindset culture at an organizational level. A growth mindset culture is one where fundamentally getting better matters more than looking good.
Ah, that's a great summary.
Isn't it? And that shift is incredibly crucial for organizations to be agile, especially now with things like the AI revolution constantly demanding adaptation, new skills, new approaches. Companies like Microsoft, under Satya Nadella and Cigna, have actively, deliberately worked to cultivate a growth mindset culture.
Microsoft's shift from know-it-all to learn-it-all. I remember that.
Exactly. That wasn't just rhetoric. They changed performance reviews, how they evaluated risk-taking, how they encouraged learning from failures, and it's widely seen as a key factor in their huge resurgence. They made it okay, even encouraged to try things and learn rather than needing to have all the answers up front.
And leaders are key to making that happen.
Absolutely vital. Leaders play a highly visible role. They have to model the behavior they want to see. That means openly admitting their own mistakes sometimes, actively encouraging honest feedback from their teams, even when it's critical. They need to consciously create an environment where confronting weaknesses or talking about errors isn't seen as a sign of personal failure, but as a necessary opportunity for everyone to grow individually and collectively.
So leaders being vulnerable actually builds strength in the team.
It absolutely does. It demonstrates through their actions that it's safe to learn together. It sets the tone for the entire organizational culture, reinforcing that learning and improvement are what's truly valued.
That's incredibly powerful, seeing leadership actually model that vulnerability. Okay, so this concept is clearly transformative on multiple levels, but let's get practical for us as individuals. How do we actually do this? What are some concrete steps, maybe daily practices we can use to foster a growth mindset in ourselves? It definitely sounds like it needs more than just telling yourself to be positive.
You're absolutely right. It requires intentional strategies and really consistent practice. It's like building any other skill. One key starting point is to explicitly value effort, but not just blind, pointless effort, strategic effort. And maybe most importantly, actively work to reframe failures as genuine learning opportunities.
Okay, how do we do that in the moment?
Well, that internal dialogue is crucial. Instead of letting yourself spiral into, I can't do this, consciously, deliberately shift it to, I can't do this yet.
Adding the yet.
Adding the yet. That small word is profoundly powerful. It immediately shifts the focus to future potential, to the idea of improvement, to the journey itself rather than a fixed limitation. It signals to your brain, okay, this is an ongoing process, not a final judgment. It literally gives you a path forward, turning that moment of potential despair into one of potential learning.
Simple but effective. What else?
Another critical practice is self-compassion. This isn't about letting yourself off the hook, but it's about learning to talk to yourself, especially in those moments of perceived failure or struggle, the way you would talk to a kind, supportive, understanding friend.
Instead of beating ourselves up, which many of us do.
Exactly, which is so counterproductive. Self-compassion is actually a highly effective emotional regulation strategy. It helps neutralize those harsh negative patterns, the self-criticism, the shame, the guilt, and instead fosters feelings of kindness, understanding, and connection towards yourself. Think about it. You wouldn't berate a friend for finding something difficult, right? You'd offer encouragement, patience. We need to extend that same grace to ourselves. It builds resilience and creates a much safer inner space for taking risks and learning.
That makes sense. It lowers the stakes of making a mistake internally.
Precisely. And beyond that internal dialogue, journaling, especially with targeted prompts, can be an incredibly effective tool. It's like a structured lab for your mind.
Journaling. How does that help specifically with growth mindset?
It provides a space to deliberately challenge those fixed mindset narratives that might be running on autopilot. You can actively practice and rehearse growth-oriented responses. For instance, instead of just venting about a struggle, you could use a prompt like, what did this challenge reveal about my capacity for resilience? Or what's one small step I can take to learn from this setback? It transforms frustration into a data point for growth.
So using specific prompts is key.
Yeah, prompts can really scaffold the process. Think about categories like mindfulness and gratitude. Things like finding gratitude in disguise. What's one aspect of a tough situation you can be thankful for because it taught you something? Or even a body appreciation tour, focusing on different parts of your body and expressing gratitude not just for function, but for what they allow you to do and experience. This shifts focus to capability and appreciation. Processing emotions. Journaling can be a safe space to explore feelings without judgment. Try emotion mapping. Describe an emotion as if it were a physical place. What's the weather like? What sounds are there? Or the why deep dive. Pick an emotion you felt strongly. Ask yourself why 5 times, digging deeper each time to find the right cause. Understanding the why helps manage the what. Growth-oriented reflection. These are direct catalysts. Ask yourself regularly, what new skill, big or small, do I want to learn this week? What challenges have I overcome that I rarely acknowledge? What advice would my wise future self give me about this current situation? This actively primes your brain to think about development and leverage your own inner wisdom.
Those are great, really concrete prompts. And I guess there are apps and tools that can help with this too.
Absolutely. There are many digital journaling tools out there, some with guided prompts, mood tracking, ways to add photos or voice notes. While I won't recommend specific ones, the key isn't the tool itself, but the consistent, intentional practice of self-reflection through that growth-oriented lens. The apps can just make it easier to build the habit.
Right, the consistency is key. Okay, shifting gears, slightly feedback. You mentioned it earlier. It can be so tricky, right? It often feels less like a gift and more like a judgment, maybe even a personal attack sometimes. How do we reframe that and actually use feedback as a gift for growth?
Yeah, that's a really common reaction and understandable. The typical scenario is getting unsolicited feedback, right? Someone just tells you what they think, and it immediately puts you on the defensive because it feels imposed, like a critique out of the blue.
Totally. My walls go straight up.
Exactly. So the powerful shift happens when you take control and actively ask for it.
Ask for feedback. That feels vulnerable too.
It can, initially, but here's how to do it effectively. Seek out people you genuinely admire, specifically in areas where you want to improve. Don't just ask vague questions. Be specific. Articulate your goal first. For example, hey, I'm really working on making my presentations more engaging, and I've always admired how you connect with the audience. Would you be willing to give me 1 or 2 specific suggestions after my next talk on how I could maybe improve my opening?
Okay. So you frame it collaboratively.
Precisely. It makes it a collaborative effort focused on your goal, not just a random critique. It signals your genuine desire to learn, which usually disarms potential defensiveness on both sides. And always give them an easy out. No worries if now isn't a good time, and thank them sincerely, whatever they say.
Okay, so you ask for it strategically. Then what? The listening part is still hard.
That's the crucial step. You have to actively listen without immediately dismissing it. Fight that urge for your inner critic to jump in with justifications or rebuttals. Well, they don't understand the context. That's unfair. I already knew that. Just absorb it. Let it sit. Reflect on it later. Look for the kernel of truth, even if it's small. Then, critically figure out an effective way to act on it. Even a small adjustment shows you're taking it seriously.
And positive feedback, too.
Yes. Don't just focus on the negatives. Actively notice and acknowledge positive feedback. It's easy to brush it off, but recognizing your strengths, especially as seen by others, reinforces what you're doing well. That builds confidence, and confidence is fuel for taking on the next challenge, the next area for growth. It turns feedback from a potential threat into this incredibly valuable resource for continuous development.
That's a really helpful, practical way to think about feedback. turning it into an active pursuit. Okay, what about for those of us who guide others, teachers, managers, parents? How can they foster a growth mindset in the people they're responsible for, whether it's students, team members, or kids?
That's a huge area and incredibly important. For educators, it's about fundamentally shifting the classroom culture. It goes beyond just praising effort, which can sometimes backfire if the effort isn't leading to learning.
How so? What's a better way?
Instead of just saying, "Don't worry, keep trying, you'll get it," which can feel a bit empty, try emphasizing the process of brain growth. Say something like, "That feeling you're having right now where algebra feels really hard and confusing, that is the feeling of your brain building new connections, getting stronger."
Ah, connecting the struggle directly to the biological benefit.
Exactly. It validates the difficulty. Yes, this is hard, but explains its positive purpose. It transforms that struggle from being a sign of inadequacy, I'm just not a math person, into a sign of imminent progress. My brain is working hard and growing.
That's powerful. What else can educators do?
Celebrate failure, not in a dismissive way, but genuinely frame it as an indispensable opportunity to learn and grow. And model this. Teachers should openly demonstrate their own mistakes. Maybe a calculation error on the board, misremembering a fact, whatever it is, and then show explicitly the steps they take to correct it and learn from it.
Normalizing errors.
Yes. It makes errors a normal, expected part of learning, not something shameful to be hidden. It shows students that even experts make mistakes and, crucially, that learning from them is the key. Setting incremental, achievable goals also helps immensely. It breaks down daunting tasks and visually demonstrates that growth happens step by step.
What about collaboration versus competition?
That's another key lever. Encourage cooperative exercises over purely competitive ones. While competition isn't always bad, research suggests that setting communal goals where students work together to learn and achieve something can significantly boost learning and motivation.
Interesting. Why is that?
It seems particularly effective for students who might dislike highly competitive environments, which can include some minority students who may come from cultural backgrounds that emphasize communal and cooperative achievement more than individual competition. When classroom activities align better with those values, engagement and success can really increase. Studies have shown, for instance, that African American students showed better recall when communal learning goals were emphasized.
Aligning teaching with cultural values. Makes sense.
And finally, educators can provide what's called motivational scaffolding. This means subtly supporting a love of learning for intrinsic reasons: personal growth, curiosity, contributing to the community, the sheer joy of understanding rather than relying solely on extrinsic rewards like grades or prizes.
How do you scaffold that?
By genuinely communicating your own belief in the student's capacity for growth and your own passion for the subject matter and the value of learning itself, students are incredibly perceptive. If they sense their teacher is intrinsically motivated and truly believes they can grow, that motivation becomes contagious. It can even spread to students they might later influence, creating this amazing ripple effect.
Wow, the teacher's own mindset being contagious. That's fascinating. Okay, let's pivot to the workplace. How do leaders build that kind of culture, one that really thrives on growth and continuous improvement, mirroring what we just talked about in schools?
It starts, fundamentally, with fostering that same psychological safety we discussed earlier. Leaders must actively cultivate an environment where team members feel confident taking those interpersonal risks, suggesting new ideas, admitting errors, asking for help without fear of blame or punishment.
Because otherwise, people hide problems.
Exactly. If there's no psychological safety, team members are likely to keep quiet about errors, potential problems, or even innovative ideas for fear of looking incompetent or being shot down. That allows small issues to become big ones and stifles the very learning and innovation that drive growth.
So safety first. What else?
Encourage those asker-led feedback conversations we talked about for individuals. Instead of feedback being a top-down, often stressful performance review thing, create a culture where employees feel empowered to ask for feedback when they want it, on things they want to improve.
Flipping the script on feedback again.
Right. It dramatically reduces the stress and defensiveness often associated with critique and helps people genuinely see it as a tool for their development. Research even shows that the givers of feedback feel less stressed when they've been asked for it. Leaders can model this simply by asking for small bits of feedback on their own performance. How was my eye contact in that meeting? Making it a normal, valued practice. Over time, it can become a habit across the whole organization.
Making feedback a shared pursuit of getting better.
Exactly. And one more crucial point for leaders. They absolutely must understand that a growth mindset is not about believing people have limitless capacity. This is a common and, frankly, dangerous misconception
Oh, so?
because it can lead to overloading employees, piling endless tasks and projects onto people. Even those who seem enthusiastic and have a growth mindset doesn't foster growth. It inhibits long-term progress. It leads straight to burnout and can damage their sense of competence and well-being.
So growth mindset doesn't mean work yourself into the ground.
Not at all. The true definition in an organizational context involves a dual belief. First, that employee skills can be improved. And second, that improving those skills is actually the point of the work they do. It's about focused, purposeful development, not just endless, unsustainable effort. Saying, my plate is full, or I need to prioritize to do this well, isn't a sign of a fixed mindset. It's often a sign of understanding cognitive limits and the need for focused attention to truly learn and develop effectively. Leaders who get that balance empower sustainable growth, not just frantic short-term output.
That's such a critical clarification. Growth needs focus, not just more hours.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to touch on a couple of potential pitfalls or critiques. I've heard some people argue that this whole growth mindset thing is really just a rebranding of the old self-esteem movement from the 80s and 90s, where the main goal was just to make everyone feel good, sometimes regardless of actual achievement. Is there any truth to that? Or is it missing the point?
That's a really important critique to address, and it's one Dr. Dweck herself actively pushes back against. It's a fundamental misunderstanding. The growth mindset is emphatically not about simply praising effort just to make someone feel good, especially if that effort isn't actually leading to learning or progress.
So it's not participation trophies for the mind.
Definitely not. And it's also absolutely not about hiding learning gaps or telling everyone you're so smart, regardless of their actual performance. In fact, Dweck largely developed the growth mindset concept specifically to counter the potential negative effects of the self-esteem movement, which sometimes led to inflated self-views without the underlying competence, leaving people unprepared for real challenges.
Okay, so what's the key difference then?
The core intention of the growth mindset is to help close achievement gaps, not mask them. It's about first, telling the truth, being honest about where a student or employee currently stands in terms of their achievement or skills. And then this is the crucial part, working together to develop effective strategies to help them get smarter, become more capable, and ultimately genuinely improve.
Truth plus strategy.
Exactly. Effort is essential, yes, but it has to be strategic effort. It needs to be paired with trying new approaches, different tactics, and actively seeking help and input when you're stuck. It's not just about blind persistence, it's about persistence guided by a commitment to learning and a willingness to adapt your strategy. The focus is squarely on learning and improvement, not just on feeling good.
Okay, that clarifies the distinction. But if the concept is so powerful and distinct, why doesn't it always seem to work? We sometimes see research suggesting maybe a low effect size for growth mindset interventions in schools, for example. If it's not the theory, what's going wrong in practice?
That's another critical question, and the research suggests the disconnect often isn't with the core theory itself, the idea that mindsets can change and impact outcomes. The challenge frequently lies with the environment created by the adults involved, the teachers, the leaders, the parents.
How did the adults get in the way?
Well, even if adults talk about growth mindset, they might still hold fixed mindset beliefs themselves, maybe unconsciously. And if they do, their actions and the systems they operate within often continue to treat students or employees accordingly, undermining the growth message.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, a teacher might verbally endorse growth mindset in class, but then continue to use rigid, unchanging ability groups that signal to kids their potential is fixed. Or they might disproportionately praise innate talent, you're so smart, over strategic effort, I see how you tried a new way to solve that. Or the school system might put overwhelming emphasis on high-stakes standardized tests as the ultimate sole measure of success, which inherently sends a fixed mindset message.
So the system contradicts the words.
Precisely. It means that simply talking about growth mindset isn't enough. The real impact, where the rubber meets the road, comes from aligning our actions, our feedback mechanisms, our assessment methods, our performance reviews, our whole organizational or classroom culture, consistently with growth principles. The actions have to genuinely reflect the belief for the transformation to really take hold. And for adults, that often requires a hard look at their own underlying mindsets and ingrained practices first.
Walking the talk is essential. And it sounds like even measuring whether someone has adopted a growth mindset can be tricky. How do researchers or managers accurately assess this?
It is complex, and it's a real challenge. The most common method is using self-reported surveys, where people answer questions about their beliefs, about intelligence, or how they approach challenges, or maybe about their grit, that perseverance for long-term goals.
Seems straightforward enough.
Well, the problem is these surveys can be influenced by what researchers call reference bias. People might unconsciously compare themselves to their immediate peers when answering, "Am I grittier than the person next to me?" rather than some objective standard. Or they might just give answers they think are socially desirable, what they think they should believe, rather than reflecting their true, deep-seated beliefs or how they actually behave under pressure.
So they might say they have a growth mindset, but not really operate that way.
Exactly. The survey might capture their aspiration or their intellectual understanding, but not necessarily their functional operating mindset in challenging situations. That's why behavioral tests often provide more accurate, objective insights.
Behavioral tests, like
Yeah.
what?
These might involve observing, for example, how long a student actually persists on a really difficult but solvable puzzle before giving up, or tracking whether someone consistently chooses to tackle a harder task that offers more learning potential versus an easier one where they're guaranteed success, or observing how they react physiologically and behaviorally when given constructive criticism. These measures get closer to the actual action that reflects the underlying mindset, bypassing some of the biases of self-reporting. Understanding that distinction is crucial for knowing if a growth mindset has truly taken root.
Fascinating. So much nuance there. Well, what a deep dive we've had today. We started off exploring that profound difference between a fixed and a growth mindset, realizing it's not just a belief, but something that shapes our whole approach to learning, to challenges, to life itself.
The foundational belief system.
We unpacked how embracing that simple but powerful phrase, "not yet," can literally help rewire our brains for learning, boosting academic tenacity in students, improving mental health and purpose for individuals.
And even transforming how entire organizations like Microsoft and Google operate, fostering that crucial psychological safety.
Absolutely. And we journeyed through so many practical strategies, from personal practices like self-compassion and structured journaling, to actively seeking feedback as a gift, to ways educators and leaders can foster growth in others by shifting culture and modeling behavior. It really feels like this shift towards valuing strategic effort, learning from mistakes, and seeking challenges is a continuous, lifelong journey.
Definitely a journey and not a switch you just flip.
So as you, our listeners, reflect on all this and go about your day, here's something to maybe mull over. If, as Dr. Dweck suggests, the ability to learn and improve is almost like a fundamental human right, then what incredible yets, what hidden potentials are waiting right now to be unleashed in you and in the world around you, simply by truly embracing the unwavering power of growth?